Wad. So I'll be doing ITOM today. We've got CSM on Thursday, and then we've got a break on Friday, and then next week we'll do security operations and GRC. So we'll be doing more than just security ops, ISV, HR, and the platform, and then that will take us nicely to covering it all. There is a Q&A panel, so if you've got any questions, then don't put them in chat, put them in the Q&A panel, and we have Fouad, James, Owen, and Philippe currently on that panel who will be able to answer your questions. So there's a lot to cover on AIOps. First of all, I thought I would do is cover a little background, just to remind everybody what we're talking about and what these areas are. So from an AIOps perspective, I think one of the first things we need to do to make it so it becomes more intelligent is to ensure we've got a really good CMDB. And that needs to be a CMDB that's good tomorrow as it is today. So we need to establish that visibility across the estate so that we know what we've got, be it on-prem, be it on the cloud, and keep that up to date. The problem if you don't keep it up to date is it makes automation a challenge, and people lose trust in it, and that's not where we want to be. So from that perspective, we need to look at being able to do that. So we've got the established, which is all about visibility. And within those categories, we tend to be talking around either importing things into the CMDB, preferably using discovery, but also complementing that with service mapping as well. And once we have that in place, then it makes the next steps easier, although they can still be done on their own, where we go into more the delivering of that business service, which ultimately I think is where AIOps comes into its own, because it starts using the intelligence to be able to take us from the world of reactive remediations, which we've done for years. I've been in IT 30 years. We've always been pretty reactive. We need to become more proactive, and we have spoken about it a lot, but it's still very difficult to do. But I think with the onset of the intelligence within our platform, bringing the data in from third-party monitoring tools, I think we're in a good place to actually start meeting that goal that we've set ourselves for many years. So from this perspective, our deliver side and our health side is all around our traditional event management, which we all know and love. And there's been a few good changes in that, like the operator workspace, which I'll talk about a little bit later on. And we'll see a quick demo of that as well. But also for operational intelligence as well. So by bringing data in from the particular assets and servers and things that we're monitoring, we can not only look at the events, but we can look at what's happening while those events are occurring, so that we can start to use some intelligence to try and be more proactive moving forward if we see those same scenarios again. And then finally, we have the optimization perspective, and that's very much focused around the cloud from our perspective, around what usage we have in there. I also think, although it's not part of ITOM, the optimization can also be what we look around software licensing, so part of the SAM side as well. So it's worth looking at that, although I won't be covering that as part of ITOM today. So from a cloud perspective, again, it's all around understanding your costs, being able to make provisioning easier for people, I think is quite key, and then being able to reduce those costs, understand those costs, reallocate those costs, reduce the costs, make the cloud spend more effective, because ultimately for our customers, they've probably built up over time a lot of cloud and don't necessarily know what some of it is doing. We have the ability to allow them to drill in and understand that, and then start making decisions along with recommendations that we can give on where you can actually make those cloud savings. So that's just a very quick overview, and hopefully everybody on this call knew about that anyway. So let's talk about what's new. So as I mentioned, we've got lots of new things within IT operations management. There's not necessarily always the big releases with lots of new products coming in. There are a few, and I will cover those, but there's lots of smaller things as well. And I've had to, because we only have 50 minutes for this or so, I had to cut that down. So not everything will be in here. So anybody who's looking at doing the Delta exam, which should be available to them shortly, then that is definitely something that you need to read the release notes. That's what I do all the time. If we're doing the deltas, read the release notes, because that's where a lot of the information is. And for those that don't know, you can turn those into a PDF. It's really simple, and then just read it on your tablet. Okay, so let's talk about some of the visibility. So the first one will be actually a new product, which is TLS. So this is all around certificate management and being able to manage the certificates that you have out there. And I think this is quite a key element of IT operations management, although a relatively new one for us. This will be available through the store. I'm not 100% sure if it's available now. I have it on my demo, but I'm not sure if it's 100% available now. But keep an eye on it. It will be out very, very soon if it's not now. And this really allows us to be able to understand when certificates, for example, are expiring. So it uses an element of discovery in there to be able to go off and discover these certificates and look at the certificate dates, for example. We obviously need to actually tell them where these certificates are, but that's a fairly simple process to be able to do. And then it's using workflows, obviously within ServiceNow, to be able to manage that. So as a certificate comes up to be needing to be renewed or updated, then we can kick off a workflow that will remind people. And this is quite key. I've seen this many times, that this is available to allow people where they've not been monitoring this as caused outages. There's just one example at the top, which was an Ericsson one a couple of years ago. But actually, this happens quite often where people don't keep up to date with their SSLs and their certificates. So again, this is quite key for us to be able to do. And just remember, guys, if anyone's asking questions, then try and put it in the Q&A panel, not in the chat, because that's the Q&A is what people are monitoring. Okay. So in terms of the way this works, as I said, it's available on the store, and I've been told it is available now, so you should be able to get it downloaded as well. And as I say, it's part of discovery. So you'll see here you have the ability to create a certificate discovery, and I'll very quickly walk through that. I can't go through the full demo, but we'll go very quickly walk through that in a couple of seconds. So when we're creating this, then what you can actually do is you can actually look at service requests. You can raise incidents if you want before the expiry. It will check daily to look if anything is expiring, and you can set various levels of certificates to be able to look at as well. At the moment, we don't do that update or renew those certificates. That's possibly something in the future, but not today. But it's giving you a good heads up and stopping people from making those sort of mistakes. So let's go into a quick demo on that. So let me swap screens and go to here. So this is the latest demo data. It's not available to partners yet for Orlando, but it will be hopefully shortly, and you'll all get emails. But keep an eye on the partner portal to let you know when it is available. There's been a few changes, so that's still undergoing some tests. So we're still using the same character that we used in the last few releases for the demo personality or persona for IT operations management, and that's Naomi Nock. So all the favorites are usually set up on that to be able to do that. So what we can see is the certificate management dashboard. This is very simply a simple dashboard. We've got all the open certificates that we currently have, so ones that potentially need renewing. We've got maybe some priority tasks that we've set up and some renewal tasks as well. So this gives us a good idea as well as a sort of trend that we've seen over time. If we click on this, it's typical sort of area where we click into it and we look at all the different certificates that need to be looked at. We've got a couple here which are critical as well. So again, what we can do is we can click into there, and we're basically looking at this certificate task. So the task type is a renewal. So obviously this cert actually needs to be renewed, which was really the point. And then it's assigned to, for example, this assignment group. And in this case, because so that we can see it, for the demo purposes, it's assigned to Naomi as well. So she's got all the details here that she necessarily needs, if there's any approvers, etc., to go through. So we've got all the details that we need to be able to look at that and be able to move that forward. In terms of being able to initially look at some of the discovery on here, then you have the ability to create some discovery URLs. So if I just click on new on that, you can see exactly what you do. You just basically put the URL in. You then need to attach that to a discovery schedule, and then it will go off and do that. So as you can see, some of our examples are looking at things which are external, because we should be able to see certificates anyway, to be able to look at that. So again, I think this is something that's probably been lacking in a lot of organizations, probably been driven by spreadsheets in the past, and that's where things get missed. If somebody's not looking at those spreadsheets, or an Outlook entry has been ignored or has been deleted or expired, then this is the way to be able to do that and manage it in a much better process using ServiceNow. Let me flick back to the slides. Okay, so a couple of other things. As I say, I've been really picked some of the areas which I think will be interest to people within this group. It is really probably less than 20% of all the new things that are in IT operations management. But a new way is around service mapping. I know there's always questions around service mapping. What can we do to make service mapping a little bit easier? So this is mainly aimed at cloud. Well, it's really totally aimed at cloud, to be able to make service mapping in the cloud a lot simpler. So the whole point of this is to allow you to accelerate your service mapping around some of those deployments that are in container environments, which of course we are seeing more and more of as we move forward through previous years, and certainly into 2020. We'll see a lot more cloud-based applications, I think, and I think the current circumstances will probably make people want to run more things in the cloud as well. So what are the tags? Well, basically they're sort of metadata. So we need to be able to understand where that tag is. This is an example within AWS of where that tag is, and then we can actually look at that tag. As you can see from a CI perspective, they can be assigned more than one tag, but what we normally do is we'll be able to sort of discover this through horizontal discovery, and that will put that into a record, and then we could potentially do some service mapping off the back of that. So again, I think this is pretty powerful the way that works. But what it also means, and it's a question that I've seen come up a few times, is how do we actually, and what's maybe a best practice for the different ways that we can do service mapping? So what I've seen is, and I'm not sure if they're going to produce a white paper on the back of this, is there sort of any best practices that we can look at from this perspective? Because we talk about using our own tools, we talk about using third-party tools such as AppDynamics and Dynatrace to be able to ingest data into be able to do the service mapping perspective. So here you can see we have different ways of being able to do it. Ultimately, we want to use ServiceNow option of service mapping, but there's no reasons why we can't use other ways to be able to do that as well, and use it also as a complementary as well. So, for example, being able to use data coming in from places like Dynatrace and AppDynamics. There are obviously more products available than just that, but that's just an example of what a lot of customers tend to use. And then we can start to see how we can put those maps in there and use that maybe on the top of this overall discovery, because they tend to be quite focused on the applications that they tend to be monitoring. And then now we've got the new tag-based service mapping as well. So that's really more for cloud-based environments, etc. And obviously from that perspective, you would need to be able to get that data back to be able to manage that as well. One other area that I thought was worth talking about when we're talking around things like discovery is we're always talking about credentials and how we can actually mitigate the fewer credentials as humanly possible to be able to do this. So what we have now is the ability to support the just enough administration. So this is all around Windows, and it gives you that sort of sudo that you get within the Unix. And I know that's not always the perfect answer, but it is something that's new. It was introduced in Windows Server in 2016, and it allows us to potentially do a little bit more by delegating roles around things like PowerShell. So it's something worth considering if you're getting a lot of pushback from the security teams. You'll potentially get less information in some cases because it is basically allowing you to just do the certain commands. So you need to be a little bit careful and check the data that's coming back. But ultimately what it will allow you to do is certainly populate more than you could do before if they didn't give you those sort of administration privileges. The other thing just to highlight, I think most people knew this in previous versions actually, is WMI is being replaced more by WinRM. Because WMI is an older management tool, it's not usually a service that people turn on nowadays. It tends to be a service that's stopped. So you'd need to ask for it to be turned on for a lot of organizations to be able to use it. This seems a better and more secure protocol. And more importantly, it's recommended by Microsoft. So again, that's the reason why people turn WMI off. And that will then allow you to be able to do some more of the discovery from that perspective as well. So that's really covered off what we've done in discovery. And as I say, there are other things. I must have removed at least 20 slides on this, and it's the same for each one. But I've hopefully highlighted some of the things which I think from a partner perspective, they'll be quite key. So let's talk about health. So in this case, we're talking about event management and operational intelligence. And one of the main stories, of course, and you know, because I talked about this when we did this 6 months ago as a limited release, is the operator workspace. So I'm hoping most people on the call, because it was installed as part of your demo, has actually seen that operator workspace and been able to use it and help understand the way it works. It wouldn't have been available to a lot of your customers. So this is again the case of, from a customer perspective, something when you do the upgrade, which of course we're all doing with the N-1 policy very shortly, hopefully, when you do the upgrade, then introduce them to this. There's some good things around here that have also been added. So the landing page looks pretty similar. There's been a few cosmetic changes. One of the things I would say is we've changed it so it makes it more scalable as well. And that's not just scalable from our operator workspace perspective, it's actually more scalable if you've got lots of business services than it used to be on the event dashboard. So you can actually see lots of things, you can do the filtering, you get a much better and simpler view to be able to look at that. We also again have that the hierarchical view, which makes it simple to break down, as well as being able to look at the alerts as a pull out on the right hand side. So I'll talk about that later. So ultimately, I would look at trying to get as many of your customers away now from the event dashboard and onto this, because it is simpler and easier to use. It doesn't just look better, it is a lot better experience for your customers. So for those of you that haven't seen this yet, I thought I would do a very quick demonstration of what it looks like. So again, just bear with me as I exit PowerPoint. We go back to Naomi again. So just as a quick thing for anybody who's demoing this, and this is the same actually in the current version within the New York demo as the Orlando demo will be when you get hold of it, you need to choose your scenario. So here you have your various scenarios. I'm going to use this one in this case, and I've actually already run it so I can save time. This one takes about 2 or 3 minutes to spin up. This one here, if you're going to start using some of the operational intelligence in it, which is again a great demo, it takes a bit longer. It takes about 10 minutes to spin itself up. So just be aware of that. And the other thing that people don't always talk about is at the end of it, there's an option down here. I've put it at the bottom, but it's wherever you want it to be, called Cleanup Alerts. That will basically reset everything. So just be aware that that's there. So in terms of what we're going to look at, we're already running this. So actually, I already have the dashboard up and running in good Blue Peter style, as most people in the UK will understand what I mean by that. So we can see in this case, we're looking at everything that's good. A lot of the greens are filtered out. Again, you can click on this to expand those as well. Totally color coded. You can look at it by different groupings as we did do before. You can just click on it to just purely look at those critical ones on and off. So these are on and off buttons that you've got here. So you can switch those on and off to be able to look at those. And on the right hand side here, you also have that ability to look at it by alerts. So here you've got all the different alerts that you might want to drill into. There's 2 ways of going into it. You can actually go directly into the alert, or you can click on it from an order status perspective. And here you have a couple of things. Now these are the same as what they were within New York, but one of them has changed. I'm going to ignore service details for the moment. Let's go into service map. So prior to this, when you went into service map, it opened the service map in a new window, the traditional way that we looked at the service map. Still did the things that we saw before. It overlays the alerts and areas like that, but now we get it all within this particular operator workspace. So that's one positive. The slight negative is it doesn't have all the functionality that you would have if you open the full map. Hence, you've still got the button over here to be able to open a full map if you wanted to. So this will open this in a completely new browser tab, and you'll get the sort of traditional view. This really hasn't changed at all from what we've seen in the past. But for a lot of cases of what a lot of your customers will want, actually this is enough. It's showing what those alerts are, it's showing what these different elements are, and actually some of the other things that you had are actually under part of the details, where you'd start to look at things like the endpoints, changes, etc. They're actually all under the alert details. Now, as we know, these alert details have been there for a while, so we've really just changed the way that we look at from that perspective. And if I go in now and drill into one of these, then we can look at, oh, that was a good one. Hopefully I haven't closed those without realizing it. Let's go back to here, click on it over here. I seem to have broken it. Oh, there we go. There we go. So this is really what's been in the product for actually 3 releases, because before the operator workspace appeared, when we got the agent workspace, you could still look at the alerts that came into IT operations management through that view. But now everything is encompassed into one place. So you've got the operator workspace, you've got the particular details that you might have around a business service, such as order status, and then you can drill into that particular area. And again, you've really got 3 panels in here that you can work with. So these are just the details. You've got all the details around the activity, which includes understanding, and that's quite a big thing, why it's decided to do some of the alert correlation. And then obviously you've got the knowledge articles here as well. So in this case, we know it's low disk. We can then click on that knowledge article, we can look at it, and then we can add it, if you've not already done so, into the particular alert that you've got. We've got the incident. So again, if we go in and look at opening the incident record, again, oops, we can look at that detail. And I think I might have accidentally closed that, so apologies, to be able to see that detail that's happening. We've got all these secondary alerts. So again, primary, the whole point of the machine learning is that it takes that understanding, gives you a primary alert and all of the rest that are linked to it. And they could have come from other third-party areas. So you can see we've got a few from Dynatrace in here and SolarWinds as just this particular example. So they're still there, but actually we're working on this one. And depending on how we close it and how we fix it through remediation, depends on those particular options. And we have the option of remediation tasks here as well. At the moment, there's nothing in the demo data on this, but as I say, that's why they're still working on it, and it's not been released to you guys to be able to look at some of this data. What we also have is the impacted services, so we can see actually this particular node is not just impacting one service, it's actually impacting multiple services. Something new that's appeared is the ability to take this alert and actually assign it to me. So I can now go in and I can assign that alert to me, and that's now been assigned to me from that perspective. And then we have things like the insights that we've had before. So we can start to look at, is there anything other similar areas that have been around this particular side of things as well. So any current outstanding top changes and areas from there as well. So ultimately from here, again, we can click back to this screen. We can change the view and remove these, for example. So again, it's a little bit like a breadcrumb trail on the top. And if we wanted to, we could, for example, look at rewards processing and then drill into the same sort of thing from that perspective as well and see what we have here. So you've still got that view, the ability to flick around. Notice 2 different tabs now. So we've got order status still there because I've not shut it. And we've got the rewards process there. So ultimately, I think this is a great new way to move forward, allowing people to be able to manage the way that they manage the systems from that side. So hopefully that's a quick overview. I really recommend getting your customers to at least look at this within a pre-production, but certainly when you're looking at doing an upgrade, look at getting this live. Okay, let's continue. So a couple of other things that I thought were worth highlighting around some of this side of things. So first of all, we got that ability to be able to, again, look at the primary alerts and those secondary alerts. So this allows you to be able to understand the way this works, but it takes you a little bit further. we've always been able to look at the alerts and see them from a list view like this. But what we're able to do is start to be able to look at this from a new link that's created, which is this dependency view map. So we can look at this and it will really create a new screen. So what we can look at is see how they're linked together from this particular side of things, and be able to then understand what the dependency is that's from that particular side of things. So ultimately, I think this is really good. It helps an operator who might not understand why you're getting multiple alerts from different tools to be able to look at different things. This is a sort of way that you can understand how this all fits together. One thing I already showed, which is this ability to do the alert assignment as well. So we can go in, then you've got these alerts, as long as you've got the right roles, then you can actually assign it to yourself or assign it to that particular group if you've got that particular button. So that allows you to be able to sort of assign these fairly quickly and fairly simply. You've actually still got the list down the bottom here. So I could just as simply have filled it in there, but this is just a quick shortcut really to allow you to be able to set that off yourself. So hopefully that's something that's seen as being useful for people to be able to use going forwards. So that's really a handful of new changes. There are a lot of changes within the health, very small ones, but ones that could make a big difference. So again, as I said, the release notes are all-encompassing when it's looking at all the updates that we've had. So let's talk about optimization. And as we know, optimization is all around the cloud side of things. One of the big things from a partner perspective, this isn't necessarily quite so exciting for customers, but for a partner perspective is the concept that we've now finally taken cloud management to be domain separated. So from that perspective, what we can do, and it's fully domain separated supported, it's not just half a sort of job, it's fully domain separated. So this will now allow you to have your domain separated instance on ServiceNow with multiple customers and allow them to see what their offerings are from a cloud perspective, which also includes the cloud portal as well for them to be able to manage it from that perspective. So this is a big step. I know it's something that certain partners have been asking for a long time, and we seem to have been waiting for it for a while, but now it's here. They've made a really good job of it. And allows you to basically be able to look at the different domains, look at the different mid servers that you have, split all of that off, and then be able to allow different people to be able to access that data. So this is 100% good movement for all of those domain separated partners. So this is the way it sort of works from a mid server point of view. So again, we definitely have a mid server tied to the domain, which it will report to, as you know, hopefully those that have covered cloud management, is that you need a mid server to be able to use the APIs to be able to do some of the discovery and then the provisioning side of things, as well as bring that data back to be able to do some of the forecasting moving forward. So that's all good from that side of things. A couple of other things, and one thing I wanted to talk about, but I didn't have a share on, is the ability to do the cloud reporting. So we basically now, it was released on the store a couple of releases ago, which is what I see as the better way to be able to start to look at how you're managing cloud, how much it's costing you, etc. So that's called Cloud Insights. It is, I think, part of this release. It was available on the store, so again, you can download it if you want. It came out mid-release. Definitely something you should consider using. It will give you a massive advantage on being able to, A, the reports are a lot more updated, B, it starts to give you some help around where am I spending my money, what should I do to actually reduce this, and where can I make those changes. So again, Cloud Insights, please do look at that and start to utilize it where it's applicable for you guys. The reason I've shared this one, you might think this is a little bit weird, is because I always think some of these things go missed. So what we have the ability to do is we have some different type of recipes. So almost how you're going to make up your starting point for going onto that journey of being able to spin up instances and provision them. So we've actually created some of these. I personally thought we might put these on the store, but we haven't, probably rightly so. So where these are is actually on developers.servicenow.com. So again, you've got the ability to look at those and download those if you want. It's a good way to get started if you don't already have something. But again, make sure you check it, make sure you test it, because it is something that's really on share from that perspective, and not something that's been 100% signed off by us. So one other area that I wanted to talk about was the CMDB. And I'm hoping that people have recently also seen that we're doing a lot around the common service data model. In fact, we just released the common, I think it was about December-ish time, the Common Service Data Model White Paper 2.0, which starts again talking more about services. And I'm not going to spend a massive amount of time talking about this, but I think it's worth highlighting. So this is our Common Services Data Model. The way I look at it is a framework. It's to give you a concept of what you want to do, to be able to bring in all those little CIs that you see right at the bottom here. So if I just get my laser pointer. So all of these sort of CIs that you have at the bottom, which is traditionally what a lot of organizations have, turn those into different technical services that you might be able to offer. So the whole point then is you can start to offer these through a catalog, how those make up application services, and then what you've got around the business services as well. So all of this sort of links together around the service owner. And as we've seen with ITSM Pro, we're starting to focus a little bit more around the service owner with things like the service owner's dashboard. But then we're getting into areas such as business capability. So what we start to see is, based on those business capabilities, what applications can we actually have to fulfill that? And the reason we've come up with this common service data model is because two reasons really. One is, what we don't want to see is this bit here, where 85% of the CMDBs actually fail. We want to be the 15% when they actually work, okay? The other thing is, this is a sort of model that we're following internally. So as we do our designs, as we move forward with new products or enhancements to products, this is the sort of model that we're following. So what that means is, if you're looking at doing implementations, hopefully you're following this sort of model rather than creating new random tables, which potentially might cause you an issue going forward. I'm not saying it will, but you've got that. Now you've got this framework to sort of help you. I've heard some people represent this as being the ITIL of the CMDB. Not quite sure I'd want to necessarily use that reference personally, but ultimately it's all around being able to ensure that your implementations mature the way that we're going to mature over time as well. So hopefully that's something you guys have all looked at. It's quite comprehensive. I'm not going to go through this slide. It's just purely for reference. But you can see the level of detail that we're talking about. We want to basically make this not just a list of CIs. We want to make this a service model so that people understand and use it. The business understands and use it. Because I'm guessing at the moment, a lot of people don't use the CMDB to look at what the business is doing. And this helps drive things like APM, so the application portfolio management, as well as some of the other different areas within the ServiceNow offerings. So a couple of other things that I wanted to cover on this side as well is this is quite a big thing for me. I'm seeing a lot of it where we've got new implementations where people may be migrating from other tools into ServiceNow, and that is how we actually manage to bring data in to populate the CMDB. At the moment, this is very CMDB focused. That may change over time for it to be able to be used for other things. But we have lots of different ways to be able to do it. And what's come out of Orlando is the ability to be able to actually use this bit in the middle here, which has been highlighted, which is that robust transformation engine. And what we're also utilizing around the side of it is this IRE, which is the identification reconciliation module within ServiceNow. A lot of people, when they're building the CMDB, need to be able to bring data in from third parties. And you can see the list on the right-hand side of what those are. What we're trying to do is bring that in to be able to help you bring it in from these third-party solutions without causing lots of issues, lots of duplicate data going into incorrect fields and those sort of things. So we've got a number of different ways of doing it. I've actually only just highlighted it from one perspective in this case, which is the robust transformation engine. The other thing is that you can use is ETL within the integration hub as well. So there are different ways that you can bring the data in, and they all work together to be able to ultimately update the CMDB. Now, some of it needs things like the data sources to be implemented, but the whole point of this is it guides you through bringing that data in, so that actually what you create is a good version of the CMDB. And it can include the ability to do some data cleansing as well, although I think in a lot of cases people tend to cleanse the data before they bring it into service now. But it's something to be aware of. There are 2 webinars on the partner portal which cover this in great detail and give you examples of what it is. They were both done around about February timeframe. I seriously suggest that you go and look at those, because the data that it has and the input could save you a lot of time and also make the job of bringing data into the CMDB a lot simpler and a lot easier. A couple of other things. I'd love to have done a poll on this one of hands up of how many people have actually done or used the CMDB query builder. It's probably not a lot, but it's been in the product for some releases now. I think now we've made a big change in it, in the fact that we actually can produce reporting off the back of that as well. So not only is it slightly simpler to be able to utilize and use, and on the demo we have some pre-configured queries that you can just run and look at and potentially use in your own environment as well. But now we can actually create reports off the back of that. So that, I think that's really useful, allowing you to basically be able to take some of the data that's underlying within the CMDB and help people make decisions of it very simply using the query. I'm not sure you'd necessarily give this to standard users. You certainly wouldn't. Standard fulfillers, but it's something that you can create those reports and allow them to use it. So again, something that I really recommend that you look at utilizing. And taking that a little bit further and going back to the agent workspace, which Adam spoke about quite a bit on the first day. This is obviously something that we've done in the past. You've seen it before, where you can actually go in and you can query the CMDB using the agent workspace. So we've now extended that to make that a lot simpler and a lot easier to be able to utilize. So hopefully they can now search it simpler using things like keywords to be able to find that level of detail, which just gives them, again, through a single interface, visibility at what they can see and what they can do from that side as well. What I would also add as well is we've also added a new field into CIs within the CMDB, which is called Prime. That's Primary, I think it's called. What that will also add on top of that is the ability for people to be able to look at this, look at the data within it, but actually it restricts some of it. So you can actually get it so that people aren't looking through 200,000 different items. They're focused on what they want to do, and you can create your queries around that. So again, something that maybe gets rid of any noise that might be for certain people within the CMDB. Okay, so that's some of the highlights that we've got within IT operations management and the CMDB as well. What I would suggest as well is that we look at being able to look at the RTE. So when you look at the CMDB, look at that RTE to be able to help you work around and import the data decently into the CMDB. But also, please do take a look at the Common Service Data Model 2.0. There's likely to be a 3.0 out just before Paris, possibly. So again, keep a lookout on that. There are loads of things in there. As you're doing migrations and upgrades to the newest versions, it's worth checking to go through that, because we do have 4 different stages which we need to look at. And one of those might be where you currently have created maybe custom tables for people, moving those across. So I hope that's been useful. I'll now hand over to Panos, who's going to do another quick section around what's available to you from a training perspective.
Thank you, Mark. That was very nice. And before I start with my presentation, I would like to say that For the people that already know how our now learning platform is and enablement paths are, you can disconnect, but please, before you disconnect, fill out the survey. We have made a mistake on the date of the survey. You can ignore that and just fill out the survey normally. It will be a pop-up, by the way, on your screen where you need to click continue, and this is where you start filling out the survey. So at ServiceNow, we have 3 different roles. We have the sales, the pre-sales, and the services role. For the sales and pre-sales, the path looks very similar. So if you're not familiar with this yet, you need to get your accreditation on a specific product line through the platform. And then while you get your accreditation, you learn about the customer conversations and you learn how to use the sales place that we have available for you. This happens twice a year. So now we are in Orlando release. So probably next week, you will all receive an email explaining the process and asking you to recertify for the Orlando release. And of course, next to the enablement paths that we have available in Now Learning, you also have the ongoing enablement. Part of this ongoing enablement is also the webinar that we do today. So now why it is important for you to get your accreditation? First of all, this is the fundamental knowledge for every ServiceNow solution. This is the basis. This is the minimum that we require from you. You learn more about the workflow conversations and how to deal with the customer lifecycle. And of course, you learn about how to discover better opportunities and how to qualify these opportunities better. You learn how to work better with the ServiceNow employees. And then the last thing is that it counts towards the program points. So at the same time, you help your companies acquire more points that is connected to the partner program. Now, how do you do that? From the partner portal, when you log in, you go on training. After you click on training, you select your role, sales, pre-sales, or delivery. Here, let's say we select pre-sales, you click on content, and then you see all the accreditation paths that we have available for you. So here, for example, you can select on the product line. If it's ITSM, you move to Now Learning, and then from Now Learning, after you enroll, you see how the whole path it looks like. So if you have done something similar in the past, that you don't need to go through the whole path again, it will be marked as complete. And the only thing you need to do is the product line specialization, which is, for example, in this case, ITSM. Here you see New York Delta. From next week, it will be Orlando Delta. So after you complete that, then you get an email from us saying, thank you for completing it. So we confirm, you get your badge, and that's it. So next to the accreditations, we also have the ongoing learning, and you can see here the webinars, the Orlando releases, the big events, demo center, everything is here. The webinar that we do today will be also uploaded here in this section in the webinars. And then next to that, you also have a number of other resources, which is value calculators, the Partner Success Center, a number of other things. So with that, I think this is it from us today. I just wanted to remind you the next of the webinars that are coming. So we have also CSM for tomorrow, and then next week we do SecOps, ISV, HR, and platform. And then I'll check with you, Mark. If we don't have any other questions, then I think we can close this webinar.